Welcome to the Dark Knights, Death Metal Legends. This is Comicstorian, where we take your various comic books, lore, and origins, and we break them down into digestible bites to allow you to understand what is going on in your favorite comic book universe. Today, we're going to be covering origins of various evil Batmen, which includes the Dr. Manhattan Batman crossover, a car, and an evil child. I hope you guys enjoy all of these origins, and don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more death metal. He knows what they're going to say before he even opens up his eyes. Did it work? One asks. Is you there, sir? Another says. Sir, can you hear us? The third questions. I am here. They ask if it's really me, but really, no. I am no longer the Batman who laughs. My life was much like the Prime Earth's Batman. My parents were murdered, and I rose up to become a symbol in the night, a dark crusader. I fought alongside some of the greatest heroes on the earth while facing against the most vile evil my city had ever come to know. But unlike the Prime Batman, I was also a dark reflection of what would happen if he went too far. I can still hear the Joker's neck snap in my hands and his gasping last laugh. He had one final joke though, a toxin in his heart that was released upon his death. The toxin would make whoever killed him the next Joker. But I became something far more powerful. Batman's mind mixed with the Joker's black heart, the apex predator. But the dark god Barbados came to me, telling me that my world was also a dark reflection of Batman's fears, that we would cease to exist. He planned to drag the dark multiverse down into the dark and destroy it. I convinced him that we needed more dark Batmen, and when the heroes of Earth defeated him, I would not allow myself to be dragged back into the dark. I predicted that Barbados would unleash the great mother of the multiverse, Perpetua. I engineered a plan to usurp her chosen, Lex Luthor, so that when she rose, I would rise with her, should she choose to turn against me. I knew that I could keep the heroes of Earth healed for only so long, that the Amazon would rebel and cut me down. But now I am not the one who laughs anymore. I am something else, made from a Batman that I never told the others of. You see, in a different timeline, in a different universe, a Batman found the button in his cave and decided to replicate its power. I watched him build the intrinsic generator from the shadows with a smile on my face. When the experiment went awry, he tried to fix it, so I activated the machine. It took months for that Batman to pull his molecules back together, but he became powerful enough to make and destroy words, a Bat-Manhattan. But I couldn't wait. It took seconds for me to stab his brain with my energy knife, to lobotomize him. And so, carrying him away, I had my path to ascension. Now floating through the multiverse, I can see it all, and I reach out with my mind, taking aspects of the most terrifying, the most vicious. I've become something new. Worlds where Batman has become the greatest villain on the planet. Seeing this, it dawns on me. Batman has always been a reactionary idea, born in response to the gunshots in the alley. Now that I am more, I must not be a reaction. I must be the thing that creates the reactions. I will be the bullet. The multiverse will be a dark alley, and its worlds will fall like pearls before me. I am a dark god, my mind crackling with cosmic awareness as I clutch the multiverse in my shadowy, jagged hands. I know what people are going to say before I even open my eyes, and they ask me to say something, and the dark evil that I've become begins to smile a wicked smile. Bang. In another world, in another time, Alfred continues to record his words, trying to lay down the reasoning for what has transpired in Wayne Manor that night. Not in all of his years did he think that this house would become a battleground. He wants to leave something behind, something to show the people of Gotham City that their prince is quite mad. If I'm being honest, the darkness was always here. He sighs. The young baby smashes Alfred across the face with his rattle, darkness in his eyes. Stuffed animals have been caught into, pets have been strangled, cars have been burned while the young boy prepared marshmallows. Schoolmates were beaten as Bruce Wayne smiled. But the real mask, his true cowl, it was men. Over and over I covered for him. It was that night in front of the theater that Alfred tried to pick up the Wayne family when a young beat cop, James Gordon, ordered the chauffeur to move his car. Alfred was forced to comply, and exiting the theater, the Waynes began to walk around the corner, with a young Bruce Wayne angry. "I wouldn't have come if I'd known it was all black and white. The blood looks fake," he hisses, stepping into the alleyway where the family is suddenly stopped as a mugger pulls a pistol on them. But Bruce suddenly pulls a knife, a wicked grin on his face as he leaps at the man, stabbing him in the throat again and again. He reaches down, grabbing the gun and turning on his parents, firing several more times into the darkness. He places the gun back in the robber's hands, smiling as he does it. And eventually, he begins to work up tears, crying for his parents as the police arrive in the alleyway, brought by the sound of gunfire. Later, Alfred knew what had really happened in the alleyway. He found the boy on his computer study looking at the assets that would soon be his. "In 8 years, they'll be in your name," Alfred reminds the 10-year-old boy. The doorbell rings and Alfred answers, discovering the police officer James Gordon at the door. The young cop explains that he had received files on his phone that point that the real killer of the Waynes is here. "It's all true," Alfred begins, but suddenly a crossbow bolt flies by him, piercing Gordon's throat. "Jug of this hit. Cop's not walking away from that one. And neither are you, Pennyworth," Bruce yells as he fires another bolt at Alfred. The butler moves, dodging through the house, with a battle lasting an hour. But it ended as Alfred finally managed to hit Bruce with 2 tranq darts from his gun. Alfred sighs, finishing recording his account of the events that led to this moment, when suddenly the window behind him shatters inward as Bruce leaps through it, dressed in the costume that he was creating. "How do you like my new uniform, Pennyworth?" he asks with a wicked smile. Bruce smiles down on Alfred as the butler loses his gun. Reaching for it, Bruce takes a bust of his father, holding it over his head. "Thank you, Alfred, for protecting me for all these years, keeping me safe until I was ready," he says, bringing that bust down. "Go straight to hell, Master Bruce," Alfred snarls. "After you." Bruce smiles with a sickening crunch of that bust hitting Alfred's head. He then strolls through the house, sitting in his father's old chair, beginning to ring a small bell. "Hear that? It's the sound of the Robin King, and a new spring is coming." Meanwhile, in another world and another time, Arkham Asylum, with the front gates shattered inward, the inmates are running scared. They say that the Dark Knight was swallowed by his own cave, crushed beneath the stones. It became his tomb. But in that darkness, though his body was broken, his mind still worked. Two-Face turns, the wall crumbling behind him, and he suddenly ripped through it. Why be a bat when one can be a man? Why be a man when one can be a king? The inmates turn, terror filling their eyes as a T-Rex throws Harvey in the air, catching him in his mouth and eating him. Because all will hail be Rex. Meanwhile, in another world and another time, Arkham Asylum is destroyed. The prisoners escaped as it burns in the night behind them. Barbara Gordon was murdered on TV, with people running in fear as others tried to protect her. The citizens of the city were surrounded by gangs, mobs, and monsters. Bruce looks at his computer, watching the city burn. "Are you enjoying yourself? And watching how much I have failed at everything?" Damian asks as he enters the study in his batsuit, covered in cuts and blood. "Failed at being Batman and protecting your city." Bruce regards his son, asking if he wants him to tell him the truth, and anger flashes through Damian, but Bruce finally stands, telling his son that he doesn't have to be him. He walks over to the bookshelf, pulling out an old book with strange symbols on the front of it. "The truth is, you're not getting the job done, and while I might not be able to put the cowl on anymore, maybe I can help." Bruce explains, and he tells his son about the book, that in the 1600s, Gotham was the home to a cult that worshipped a Native American god that demanded an undying devotion. They believed that the greater the love for the sacrifice, the more the god would reward them. Damian looks at his father, confused by the story. "I don't get it. So you want me to perform a secret demonic ritual from an ancient occult book to save Gotham?" Bruce whispers, "No. Everything that's happened, Damian, I want you to know that I never would have put this on you. This is my fault." He then brings his son in for a hug, the knife slipping into Damian's side, forcing his eyes to go wide. "But together, we're gonna make this right," Bruce whispers as he lowers his son to the ground, and he cuts himself, using his blood to draw the demonic symbol. "I love you, son. I always have, but in order for this to work, I have to sacrifice something I love. I think we both know that there's nothing I love more than Gotham." Bruce whispers as evil light begins to fill the room. He steps into the fire and he disappears. And so he sacrifices the city. Every street, every alleyway, the city begins to rumble as the earth opens beneath it, swallowing it whole. And from the depths of the black, an ancient tower begins to rise. And in order to save his city, Bruce has become his city. The ancient tower glows as it looks over Gotham. Meanwhile, in another world, in another time, Batman looks down at the masses. Society is running out of gas. So he did what he had to do. He put part of his consciousness into every part of technology that ran the world. He can see everything. He is everything. He became a part of their lives. The people looked down at their tablets and their phones, unaware that Batman was providing them with comfort and security. But of course, the sheep revolted. The people rose up. They fought a war against the army of machines that Batman had become. The fools only wanted freedom. So Batman was systematically wiped from the face of the planet. His digital, technological, and physical forms were destroyed, but the freedom fighters didn't see a single Batmobile driving away. The imprints of the original Batman survive within this monstrous shell, and it rides alone on the destroyed wasteland of the planet. I will rise again, Batman thinks to himself. And one last story for you all to enjoy. The machine activates, twisting the energy within the Batcave. His body had died, but Batman was about to be reborn. The Batman of 2 lifetimes will be unstoppable. He emerges from the machine as the process finishes. Wait a minute, am I a baby? Batman thinks, his mouth unable to form words. He tumbles, unable to stand, falls down the stairs to the floor below. All right, let's review. Head too heavy to lift. That might be a problem. What else is in my crime-fighting repertoire? Soft spot on my head where a foe could potentially poke a finger into my brain. Inconvenient, he thinks, lying on the cold floor. Very well. Such a conundrum might leave a lesser mortal flummoxed. But not Batman. Not when I have my ultimate weapon, he thinks. And baby Batman opens his mouth, beginning to cry. And that concludes the origins of many, many evil Batmen. I hope you enjoyed our tales, our stories. I hope you sat there contemplating what an evil Batman would look like in your world. Because if you did, I'd like you to tell me in the comments down below, what evil Batman would you make? On that note, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button. I'll see you next time right here at Comicstorian.